Good morning YouTube, my name's Rob Pollard, and the purpose of this video is to just go over some enhancements to the map scaling assistant. So basically what I've done now, I've added the ability for my customers to be able to preset a token size for each map. Whereas up to now, Sojour has always automatically picked a size for the map based on scale and so forth. And to be honest, Sojour's auto-scaling mechanism has been pretty good. I've never needed to change it, but I have had some feedback from various customers where they've imported a map with hexagons or a grid on it, and you know, the auto-sizing that Sojour produces for tokens doesn't quite fit the grid or the hexes, and they'd like an ability to override it. Now, you've always been able to resize tokens manually, but it's far better if the maps can remember the default size, and that's what we can now do. So the first thing we're going to do is import a map. I've created a dummy D&D rule set, which is an Imperial system, and for those that haven't played Lost Mines Phandelver and haven't done the first dungeon, Cragmore Hideout, you should probably not watch the rest of the video. I'm sorry, because I'm going to use its map as an example, so big spoiler alert. So I'll give you a second or two before I open it up, so I'll count down for 3, 2, 1. Right, let's show it. So here's the Cragmore Hideout in the PDF that you get for Lost Mines. Let's go open it up a bit. Now, Sojour has the ability to capture maps, and it can capture tokens directly from your scenario PDFs. It's like one of its strong points, where traditionally most VTTs you can just add them directly from the filing system, but Sojour does give the ability to add from screenshot, which we're going to do now. And it's very handy because it means you don't need to buy your books twice. You kind of buy them once and just reuse them in this VTT. I'll just call this test caves. I'm not going to give them a proper name. So here's our test caves, and what we're going to do, we're going to scale it because maps in Sojour aren't too useful unless they're scaled. So let's pull up the scaling assistant. So when you first pull it up, it doesn't look like much has changed, although the eagle eyed amongst you will notice there's now another page, because there only used to be 3 pages and now there are 4. And there have been a number of other changes to this. For instance, the cancel button now undoes any changes that you've made, whereas before it didn't. What other changes? Also, many of the fields that you see on many of the pages, they now default. So if you reuse this assistant on the same map, you'll get defaults directly from the map, and it just saves you loads of time, and I'll show that later. Anyway, let's go scale this. Hang on, let's go back one. It's 5 feet, isn't it, per square for D&D. And then leave that on red. That's going to be the color of our annotations. Hit register scale, and then let's go and make a 5 foot. There we go. So Sojour's calculated the size of this as being 143 feet by 97 feet. Click next. And this is where it's different. We have this additional page where you can set your token sizes. Now, up to now, Sojour's always done this automatically, and you can still have it do it automatically, and in fact we'll do that right now. So Sojour is suggesting a default size of your tokens of 2.46 feet, and that's for a token with a relative size of 1, because in Sojour you can set your tokens up with different relative sizes. That way you can have big dungeons, small rats maybe, and normal sized humans. It will accompany them all. But for a normal sized human, it'd be 2.46 feet across, and hit finish. And so right now we're using the default map scaling, basically, that Sojour has always had. And of course this all works if you go into that mode there. So what we can do now is we can make or change the size of the token. So if we dislike the size of this token with this map, we can now change that. And all you need to do is go back into the wizard again. We'll leave that as it is. Leave it on res because red's cool. Now note, it's already got the dimensions of the map from your previous measurements. You don't have to remeasure it. That's one change. With the previous wizard, you would have had to completely remeasure everything, but Sojour now picks this all up for you, so we can skip that straight away. And now what we're going to do, we're going to choose to alter the size of our tokens. All we need to do is untick this. So now we're in a manual mode where we can directly affect the size of tokens. And all you need to do is click this button here, register custom token size directly on the map. Click that. And what that does, all of the tokens that were on the map, they get hidden, and you get given this scale me token. And basically you can move it around anywhere you want. We'll put it in the middle of a square. I don't know, let's make our tokens about the size of a square, which is about 5 feet. I'm not going to be too precise. Yeah, about that. We're going to make our tokens about that size there. And then once you're happy with the scale, you just hit this button here, click here to accept token size from map. Click that. And when you click it, that does two things. You get the new measurement, which is 5.17 feet across for your tokens, and all your tokens get resized. If I hit cancel at this point, it will revert everything back to where it was. If you don't like the size, you can just hit this button again and resize again, or you can just hit finish and away you go. So now whenever I drag a token to this, it will adopt the newer, bigger size. And of course, Sojour allows you to independently resize as well, and it remembers that sizing. However, there has been a change to the way resizing occurs when you do custom sizes on your tokens, and that is in terms of the keyboard shortcuts. So if we bring up the helper pane for the map, in the past you used to use, I believe it's control and mouse wheel to resize, but now it's just mouse wheel, and you use control and mouse wheel to rotate. The reason for switching those two around is because I felt it was easier with the wizard to just use a mouse wheel, and I figured I'd rather have the wizard and the map use the same shortcuts. That way it's more intuitive, hence why I switched them around. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But this helper window has actually been updated. So as you can see, to rotate a token, control mouse wheel, to resize a token, just mouse wheel. So those two have been switched around, so that's one heads up. So I guess that's all I want to show. And of course, if you want to get back to Sojour's automatic sizing, all you need to do into here, next, 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 and then just tick this, and it'll go back to automatic sizing. It's that simple. And of course, you can manually resize. Now, when you manually resize Sojour, if you, I can't explain this. So if I make this a lot smaller than it would be, and then I go for a resize, what will happen is Sojour will, it won't make that particular token this size because you've made that token smaller than normal. But it knows that for each individual token. So when I accept this, as you can see, it's not exactly the same size, but it has grown a little bit, and it kind of takes into account all the various ratios. And of course, if I delete him off the map and then drag a new one, you'll get the actual size that you designated. So I say it seems like a small feature, but it actually took quite a lot of coding to do. But what it does do is it gives you a lot more flexibility with regard to token sizes on the map. Now the other big change that's gone in, which I'll briefly mention because this will affect my international customers quite a lot, is I discovered from one of my customers that many international customers, they have to enter specialist characters for the language that they speak, and normally you have to use all sorts of crazy keyboard shortcuts like Alt GR, for instance, or the right control key and so forth. And what I discovered from one of my customers is that Windows is misreporting the keys. And what would happen is you'd hit Alt GR, and it would be reported to Sojour that control was hit. And of course that would mess up your journals because all the automated stuff would kick in, and it just made it very difficult to type in a non-English language. I've fixed that now. Basically, I removed all the Windows code and replaced it with DirectX, which does seem to work. So that's one thing to bear in mind. If you're a non-English user, you should find this version a lot easier to use. That's all I want to cover, and thank you and goodbye.